Would you like to reduce your net fleet fuel spend by 10 to 23%? Could you use that money in other areas in your company while reducing your carbon footprint at the same time? Click the link below and learn more. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to SCI Supply Chain Influencers. I am Michael Vincent, and he is Nick Darman, and he is founder and CEO at Alvys. And it's interesting because for like a half hour, I called it Alvys until I think your current president at that time told me I was pronouncing it wrong. I think that was like 4 or 5 years ago on What the Truck. So,
you know what? For some reason, I don't want to say they make this mistake because you're inclined to pronounce it Alvys.
Yeah.
We put NY, even though we actually own alvis.com, alvis.com.
Yeah.
But we prefer to have the name with NY. It flows better. It has a better flow. And since Alvis is all about eliminating friction and creating a better flow, we decided to stick with NY. But the best way to remember how to pronounce our company is think of Elvis. And we often like to say what Elvis did to rock and roll is what Alvis is doing to logistics and trucking space.
I love. Was that the motivation? Are you like a big fan of Elvis? Are you like go to Graceland every year, pay homage and that type of stuff? Or?
You know, Elvis has done a lot of great things to the way music has been shaped. So I really respect Elvis. But more than anything, he's disrupted music.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. He was shaking his hips on TV, giving people heart attacks, right?
You know, those were the days. And it's kind of interesting because he comes from the South, and boy, some of those folks in the South, they really didn't like what he was doing. But it was necessary for rock and roll to actually evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. It was another step. I mean, and rock and roll, you know, it came from the blues, and it came from the Southern blues, and it came from the Delta blues, et cetera, and all that type of thing. You know, the steel dobros across the lap of, you know, different players, et cetera, is where all that came from, which is interesting because it is such a disruptive thing to come from such a conservative type of religious area in the United States. But that's not why we're here talking about this. I just remember Elvis, and I remember there's no apostrophe. It's not Y''S. So it's not Alvys as if some, you know, possessive. It's Elvis. But anyways, Nick, why Elvis? Actually explain what Elvis is. I think most people in the logistics industry understand Elvis, at least from a you know, it's a TMS type of thing, right? But it's much more than that, as I've learned over the years in speaking with you as well, right?
Correct, and it's kind of interesting if you think about TMS and what it actually means. We could spell it out: Transportation Management System. We're a lot more than just a TMS because we're not just doing transportation management system. We are helping trucking companies and logistics companies run their business. So we're essentially an ERP to logistics companies, whereas we could be a TMS if you are a shipper. But since we've coined TMS to mean ERP in our world, in our space, then there you go. We call it a TMS to make it easier for people to understand what we are at core. But when you look at a lot of the TMSs and how they're built, they're simply a system of record. And so they're storing the record for you to be able to do something with those records. And many times, a lot of TMSs, a lot of the platforms, at least in the past, have fallen short to create the proper workflows. So if I were to describe our platform, Alvys, in a nutshell, I would call it this way. Alvys is a system of record, workflow engine, collaboration platform with hybrid architecture, embedded EDI, powered by a marketplace where carriers are able to source for new business in our platform. That's in a nutshell, and I could actually speak about specific vertical. We could actually dive in, but that's basically what we are. So it's a lot more than just a system of record. We have taken those records that we're storing on our platform, and we're creating specific targeted workflows for different companies. And by the way, there's 10 or 100 different ways to pay a driver. And those workflows are very important, specific to a specific customer. So we had to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to be able to help different customers that plug into our platform? And so we have to build those workflows to make sure they don't just mold under our platform, but we give them the workflow that helps their business become more efficient.
So is this an integration engine, or you're actually building this with inside your platform in order to be customizable to the different needs of those customers? In other words, is it just, you could bring in modules from others, like, Qt or whomever it happens to be, to go through these different workflows, or is it actual customized in their systems?
So we have a different approach. We are agnostic whether we integrate with other platforms or we build in house, and we always ask the question: do we need to build it in house, or do we actually have to integrate? And if we see that the industry is struggling in a specific vertical, then we're actually going to take it in house and build it in house. But when we look at, for example, different platforms such as ELDs, Samsara of the world, and so on and so forth, there's no need to build it in house because they've mastered that. And therefore, we're much better off to integrate with them and work with each other. But when you look at EDI, which is so broken, we realized, yes, while there's other platforms that are really sophisticated when it comes to EDI, it's still broken. There's a lot of friction there, and therefore we decided to take it in house. And obviously, it's a big undertaking, but it's inevitable. It's very important for us to make sure we eliminate the friction we promise our customers.
I get it. It does this. Is there like, we've spoken before about this, in the need to. I mean, you liken it to an ERP, right? And it's living within inside the systems of a shipper, right? And actually, the shipper could actually be the consignee if it's collect. They could be ordering these things and bringing these stuff in. The BCO, I guess, is what we could really call it. But so does it integrate and then look for different workflows based on the different types of freight, cargo, shipments that are coming in, right? Not everything's truckload. Sometimes it's LTL. Sometimes it needs flatbed. Sometimes it needs environmental controls, controlled, reefer boxes or whatever you happen to be, maritime, et cetera, that type of stuff that come down. Does it reach that far into it? Does it consider those type of things?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, one of the key components that we have is the marketplace, and in the marketplace we actually bring in different freight brokers into our platform. We also have our own tenants that are freight brokers that are able to share their freight with our carriers. And so what happens there? Let's say, for example, Uber Freight or other freight brokers that are interested to integrate with us, they actually ingest their freight into our platform, and since we know exactly where our tenants' trucks are located, but knowing the location is not enough. What we actually need to know is where are they going, and not only that
Yeah.
we need to know where they're going, we need to understand when are they delivering and when are they going to be empty. And then we also need to know whether they're already covered 2 days in advance with another load or not. So let's say, for example, the truck is located in Illinois, but we see in Alvys that this same truck, has a delivery 2 days from now in Atlanta, Georgia. So we know that this truck will deliver in Atlanta, Georgia 2 days from now. Alvis is able to recognize whether this truck has another backhaul or another load already covered with this truck. If the truck doesn't have another load 2 days from now from Atlanta, let's say 100 to 200 miles radius, then someone like Uber Freight is able to ingest that load into Alvis, and Alvis is able to match, saying, hey, carrier, listen, we have a load that's a good match from Uber Freight in this case, or from another freight broker, or from another tenant that's using Alvys. Will you be interested to actually cover your truck right now so you don't worry about it once you get to the destination? And if the user is able to actually come to a consensus, they like the price, they like the commodity, they're also able to bid on the freight, then we're able to actually connect that load with that future truck that's going to be in Atlanta, and you don't do anything else. At this time, what happens, instead of building a load, this load is already built automatically. It's a seamless, because of the integration, we're able to reflect this load into Alvis
Yeah.
with a covered status for this particular truck. And when the dispatcher comes in the morning, he's able to see, oh, this truck is already covered. I don't have to look for a load out of Atlanta. So that's just one. That's how sophisticated we get when it comes to integrations. It's not just an
Yeah.
integration where we actually pull information. We actually do something. We build different workflows.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was getting for. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was trying to get to. Is does it actually? Because you said system of record, right? And that's a filing system for somebody to go in and go, oh, look, I got all these tasks I got to do today. Like we tend to get stuck. I'm sure you feel this way too. Is that you're just a manager of your inbox and your email sometimes, right? It gets crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
But to have something that actually performs a function like that is tremendous, and it goes deeper, right? I mean, I imagine that if I were a carrier, right, or a manager of carriers like an Uber Freight type of thing, right, or even somebody who had, you know, non-power units out there, just trailers out there. There's a bunch of those that just use, just have capacity around. You can book them, etc. Even if I have, like, say, a load to Atlanta, but then I have a load from Jacksonville, but I have no way to get from Jacksonville to from Atlanta to Jacksonville. It's a head haul. I could upload that information into your system and say, here's, can you fill these, and hopefully eliminate some of those backhauls with the stuff that you have, right? I mean, it's not just the A to B to C. It could be A to B and then figuring out
Something in
how to get to
between.
E for F, trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to get to E, right?
Many times, if we actually take the same example out of Atlanta, let's say we and I'm going to use Uber Freight because we already have the integration and it's public. Everyone knows that we've already integrated with Uber Freight, and Uber Freight is ingesting freight into Alvis. Let's say this same load from Atlanta going over to Philadelphia, as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going over to Philadelphia to deliver the load in Philadelphia. And let's say this load has been booked, um, 2 days from now. You're picking up
Mhm.
from Atlanta, going into Philadelphia. And then from there, you have another load from Philadelphia, which is 4 days from now, going over to pick up from Ohio to Chicago. Well,
Right.
there's a gap between Philadelphia and Ohio, right? And it's about 1 day drive or less.
Yeah.
The system, if our system is able to identify certain freight that's being ingested, from either our own tenants or third-party freight brokers, then we're going to be able to automatically recommend, hey, we know that you're picking up in Ohio, but you also have the time to pick up this load in between in order to maximize your dollars per mile. And it's doing
Exactly.
that automatically. And many times what happens with a lot of dispatchers, they're already not even thinking about that leg between Philadelphia and Ohio, because they're thinking that's not a lot of money. Why should we even waste our time? It's too much time for us to constantly look for another load, a load that's actually not paying that much, right? So they're going to be looking for something that's going out of Chicago that's actually makes sense from a business standpoint. Our system is able to actually help you get that load in between without a lot of labor involvement,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
human
Maybe you can get
involvement.
something out of Philly to, or King of Prussia over to Youngstown or Elyria or something near Columbus or something like that. There's lots of, that is fantastic. So As you're looking at going through this stuff, and I think we've talked about this before, is the potential look to then see patterns within those moves for specific customers and constantly be refining those type of loads, right? Because it seems to me that if I'm a carrier and I put it in my capacity into your system, right? It feels like I could possibly do that and not have to call and look for loads ever again if the system's working right. Right? I could leave my stuff in there and just keep moving freight through your system. That's basically my sales, right?
Correct. And in order for us to be able to achieve that kind of real time capacity, we had to build the system in such a way where we encourage our users to actually do things in real time. They
Yeah.
need to use our system in order for the system to know where is your next step.
Yeah,
So
garbage
let's
in,
look.
garbage out. You've got to use it in order to get it to perfect. Yeah.
Exactly. And we do all kinds of things in order to encourage users to do it. For example, you get a rate confirmation from a freight broker. The carrier, and this is very interesting, the carrier will not be incentivized. The user or the dispatcher is not going to be incentivized to build that load right away. They don't care. Who cares to know where my truck is? No one cares to know where my truck is.
Yeah.
We're sure that it's covered. I know that I'm covering this load with this particular truck. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to build a load at the end of the week, so my accountants know exactly who to invoice and how much to pay the driver. That's exactly the culture when it comes to TMS for a lot of carriers. That's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
reverse for freight brokers. Freight brokers usually want to build the load immediately, so they're incentivized to actually manually build the load so that they could post the loads, out on different load boards and make sure that they work and find the right truck for the open load. Whereas the
Right.
carriers are not incentivized. So what do? We basically explain to our carriers, hey, listen, you don't have to build anything. Just upload, drag and trace, and the load will be built for you. So we are doing these kind of automated features, incentivizing the users to basically almost do nothing, and the system is going to do the job for you in the background. That's just one example.
So, and that's really interesting. And I don't know that it's to this level yet. But so, when you look at things like, it sounds like you're building a system that has a base to actually utilize. And I hate to say it because it's almost become like blockchain, but AI in an actual setting and actually solve something and actually do something other than just say Elvis powered by AI, which we know 99 times out of 100 is BS. AI is BS most of the time, right?
Yeah,
But
I try to steer away from the AI word.
yeah, I know you do, and that's why I'm treading lightly, and so do I. But let's put it this way: do you then eventually have the ability to see through the emails and build that load through non-formatted content? Let's put it that way: non-formatted electronic
Exactly.
com. Yeah.
Exactly. So we parse all the data
Hmm.
from any unstructured document,
Yeah.
and we're going to be able to build that load for the user so they don't have to do it. And so what happens next, now that we have the shipment in the system, which by the way, they almost had no effort doing it. They didn't spend 2 minutes away from their job. Because usually the reason why a lot of the carriers are not incentivized to build the loads right away is because it takes about a minute or two. Some TMSs you have to build, it takes you 3 to 4 minutes to build
Yeah.
the load.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're not interested. They need to find loads. They're not interested to build loads manually. So you need to create a system that's accurate and just have them drag and trace, which takes about a second or two, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
from their time. And once they do that, something very interesting happens at that time. Now, this shipment is in open status. And when the shipment is in open status, it's the shipment that they actually booked. The system might recommend, hey, listen, you booked this load for truck A, but it looks like it's going to be more and better off with truck B. And the system will start identifying those gaps. And the dispatcher is like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about it.
Uh
Right.
huh. Uh
So
huh.
once the user understands, the faster I have this shipment or this order built in the system, which by the way doesn't take me much to do, I only have to basically drag and trace, then the system is helping me optimize all the workflows, optimize the best loads for the empty trucks. So
Yeah.
now that they know that's how the system works, now they want to do this as soon as possible. So these are some of the examples that we do. That's just one example I'm sharing what we do in order to make sure the users use the system in such a way where everything is in real time. So the most important thing is for you to know data in real time. Once you have data in real time, only then AI makes sense, if you will, right? Only then you're
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
build
Reviewing what you did
models.
is valuable, but it's old school,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, that is, and it's okay. I mean, going back and benchmarking to understand a failure or even a success, understanding that a success. I have a story that I could share about that, but I'm sure you've seen it where you've had success, and then when you go back and do an autopsy on it, it really wasn't.
Yeah,
It was totally on accident. And anything that you guys did, you know what I'm saying? That happens in business, right? So being able to go back, it makes sense, and then recreate it, change the future. But real time is essential in this case. And it's interesting because I would imagine that really improves the productivity of actually those individuals as well. Because, like you said, it's the old school. It's the mindset that you get into is like, oh, I got all this tedious work, but I'm going to save that for Friday because I know. When you get down to the base levels, because I know Saturday and Sunday's coming, so I'll just sit here and do this. And nobody answers the phone on a Friday. Nobody makes a sales call on a Friday afternoon. That's stupid. Nobody's doing it. You get into these cycles, right? And you can
correct.
break that stuff.
And then if they do that, so let's say for example the carrier has 10 dispatchers. So one of the dispatchers is thinking, you know what, I'm still going to be stubborn and not do anything in real time. I'm going to do everything at the end of
Yeah,
the week because that's how I used to do it all the time. This dispatcher is going to perform a lot worse than the rest of them
yeah,
because
yeah,
the rest of them are actually leveraging the system to help them optimize, for freight, for the right trucks, to make sure dollar per mile is
yeah.
maximized. And so the dispatcher that's actually thinking they know better because they've done it all their lives a certain way, they're going to change because they don't want to fall behind, right? And and
Mm,
and so
mm.
and so everyone is starting to understand the system is not necessarily replacing us. The system is actually helping us do better, for the entire organization, which in
Yeah,
essence, translates in better salaries, better commissions, so on and so forth. But but
yeah.
but so as the carrier, it's kind of interesting. I just wanted to tie in another point. I know we don't have
Please,
a lot of time, but as the
please do.
carrier is growing and is starting to do things in real time, one of the things that the carriers experience is where they have overflow freight, and as they have overflow freight, usually carriers are not incentivized to keep the freight because they're afraid to broker out, as they don't know how to broker loads properly. And chances are very high they're going to broker out at a loss because they're not a freight broker. But if the
Uh-huh.
system has a hybrid architecture where it is built in a way one dispatcher is able to broker and manage the trucks, while at the same time has separate P&Ls where the owner of the company is able to identify how the brokerage is doing and how the carrier is doing, then that's actually very efficient. And since no one has actually built this in the past, as far as I'm concerned, Alvys is the only architecture that's built this way. And when I say hybrid architecture, I don't mean that I have a freight brokerage component separately from the carrier component. You don't have to log in into a different module in order to do your freight brokerage. You should be able to have all the shipments in a unified dashboard, and you should be able to make the decision whether this shipment is going on your own truck or is actually going to be brokered out. And at the
Mm,
same time,
mm,
depending on what you do with the shipment, it hits different P&L. That's very important to hit different P&L in the
mm,
back. That's very complicated to
mm.
actually build. So when you create a system that's readily available for the user to maximize and leverage, the overflow freight, then the carrier is thinking, you know what, I will actually take that overflow freight, as I'm actually going to earn some money thanks to the system. So this is
Yeah,
another angle that we created in our system to make sure we help the user. And depending on the case, it's very interesting to analyze the ROI, because ROI could be measured differently. But I would argue
yeah,
you could actually double the business with half the employees with our system. And again, a lot of it is subjective, but we have had many users talk positively and explain to us, look, I actually reduced when I didn't have a lot of business, and I was struggling. I had to reduce my accounting department by half, and I was able to actually do a lot more with Alvis.
yeah. Because when you have that seamless into your accounting systems software, that is very, very, very key. I learned that a long time ago. That's fantastic stuff. I would imagine that you would also be able to set this up eventually so that it isn't the choice of the individual to build that load automatically at the time, right? I mean, eventually it wouldn't be that the rules of work that you could implement inside the platform would be to enforce that efficiency, right? Rather than the letting the person decide not to and become that underperformer and motivate that way. You could lock it in there that
Yeah.
this is now the procedure, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and with a lot of integrations that we have created, which, by the way, as I said before, we are agnostic when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
integrations. If it helps our users, we will integrate. But
Yeah,
if it's causing more friction, we will build it in house. That's the way we look at it. Because some of these integrations, believe it or not, they're actually not helping the user. They have to sort through all kinds of data to figure out exactly what happened. It's actually not helping. And if that's the
yeah,
case, then we're going to build it in house, which is, you know, what we did to EDI, if you will.
yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
realized too many components that are missing. A lot of
Right.
data missing all the time. The mapping is never created properly, especially when you involve the third party. And there's a lot of pointing out who's wrong, who's right. And EDI is very important, because if you miss one load that didn't show up in your dashboard, that's a lot of missed opportunity. You just
Oh yeah,
lost
yeah,
a few
yeah.
thousand
There's no
dollars
doubt
in
about it.
revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The most formatted communication there is EDI.
My dream, and it has to happen with a lot of the. I will say it has to. We have to unite as competitors, and as an industry as a whole. We need to figure out how to kill the CDI component. We have to do it in a much more efficient way, and that's supply chain at the core. And we're still stuck with the past.
Yeah,
Uh, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to build EDI in house, is to actually kill it. And
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah,
need to partner up with a lot of, and when it comes to good things for supply chain, I will work with my competitors, because that's a good thing for everyone in the ecosystem.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. We'll put it on that right there. I was going to ask you, what is the one thing that you see in the industry? What is your passion right now? Is that hurdle, that item, and we'll put it there. Kill EDI. We got to get
Yeah.
shirts. Kill EDI.
That's
Right.
that's right. I mean,
Death
that's
to EDI.
that's gonna be a dream come true, and it's gonna help so many people in the ecosystem. I think everyone is going to benefit. The consumer is going to see lower prices. Logistics companies are going to be able to increase their margins. Shippers are finally going to be happy with dealing, that seamless flow of information where, they don't depend on different third-party EDIs and bunch of engineers, which, by the way, those engineers could be deployed doing something else. But no, they have to actually build and support this archaic system. I mean, so many
Because there's no
benefits.
structure to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So it's
No.
it's
Oh, you get
amazing.
a 29. Did you get an ED? Did you get a 219? Yeah. Is it? It's not the same as any other 219 though.
Yeah,
That's it. This one is not. Oh gosh, it drove me nuts every time I brought in a carrier. Well, we have to do all the mapping. How long is that going to take? A week. Oh, great,
yeah, and then
fantastic.
it turns into 4 weeks,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
2 months. It's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It was that was the standard though when you went to IT. How long to build out this mapping? 2 weeks tops. Yeah, sure.
Those days, man. And it's what amazes me. A lot of the smart engineers, they don't really want to work with that
No.
system. Most of the sophisticated engineers that actually care about their career, they don't want to deal with EDI. So I wonder how things are gonna turn out. You'll end up paying a lot of money for NDI, for someone that's dealing with EDI, right?
Well,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, we were already experiencing that in the early teens, 2012s, et cetera, trying to grab AS400 programmers. They were premium bucks, man, because they just weren't around anymore.
it's so yeah. We definitely live at this inflection point where things have to happen, and I actually believe Alvis will be at the forefront to help the industry. And I always say I'm willing to work, and I do want to work with everyone in the ecosystem to make the environment just a better place where everyone is going to benefit.
Absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time on this Monday, Nick, out of your busy schedule. I really do appreciate it. Some brilliant insights, and we learned a bit about Alvis and what you guys are doing there. It's really interesting stuff, and I'll echo it right here. Death to EDI.
All right.
Right on. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to SCI. I'm Michael Vincent. Until next time, peace and love.
Take care.